Welcome. In this video, I will take you through the second part of receiving, storing, and inventory concepts. Now that we've gone through all the steps to ensure that we have purchased the right products at the right time, at the right price for our establishment, and now we've received them in, we need to make sure that we are storing all of this valuable merchandise properly. FIFO is a term I'm sure you've all heard of. FIFO refers to first in, first out, meaning the first products that go into your cooler should be the first ones that come out. So when you're looking at a few cases of milk, or let's just say the 1 gallon jugs of milk, you want to use the older products first. The first products that went into your cooler should be the first products that are used up. You'll often see use by stickers or used first stickers to make sure that those older products are being used first. But even when you're storing them, ensure that you are rotating your products and in storing the freshest ones in the back so the older products are getting used first. TCS, remember this is our time and temperature controlled for safety food products, need to be stored at 41 degrees or lower. This is your normal cooler temperatures. Or if they're warm or heated, hot TCS food products, they need to be held and maintained at a temperature of 135 degrees or higher. You want to always store your meat, your poultry, seafood, as well as your dairy items in the coldest part of your coolers. If it's stored near the door, as that door is opening and warmer air comes in, it will affect your cooler right by the door and your temperature will actually be a little warmer. Store your frozen foods, obviously in the freezer, but keep them frozen until they're needed. Make sure that you have proper storage facilities for thawing your products properly. Make sure your storage units have at least one air temperature measuring device. It's great to have them built onto the unit, but you want to have them hanging inside to determine the actual air temperature. Again, you want to put it most likely in the warmest part of the cooler, right by that door, so that way you can verify if it's getting too warm in that part of your cooler. You want to keep your food in a clean, dry location, making sure there's no dust or other contaminants, and always make sure that you're using areas that are designated for food storage, not an office or just an extra side room. You want to make sure they're actual food storage facilities. Store all items again then in their designated areas as soon as possible. All items should be stored at least 6 inches off the floor and away from the walls. That way continuous airflow can happen and again eliminate any pests. Store single-use items such as your individual cups or gloves in their original packaging until needed. And store food in containers that are intended for food. Never ever store food in chemical containers, or even if they're empty containers that you washed and repurposed. Wrap and cover all food properly and make sure that all of your containers are durable, leak-proof, and they're able to be covered in some fashion, whether that's with plastic wrap or with a lid. That takes us to storage levels. In a walk-in cooler, you could have so many different products, and you want to make sure that you're storing them properly. Keep in mind this also applies to freezers. Even though it is a frozen product, unless you can guarantee that it went in frozen, it needs to be stored at this proper level as well. Your basic storage levels are accounting for the idea that the items served or stored at the lowest point is the most possible for contamination, the most hazardous. So you'll notice chicken is always stored on the very bottom. If chicken juice were to leak on anything else, those products would have to be cooked to 165 degrees in order to maintain and ensure that that product is safe. With the chicken being on the bottom, it is the only product there that is cooked to 165 degrees. If there was a TCS product that needed to be reheated, if there was stuffed chicken in there, some other products, again, then chicken wouldn't necessarily, that one pan wouldn't be the only item that would need to be towards the bottom. However, in this visual, it certainly is. Let's take the ground beef in the second shelf. Ground beef needs to be cooked to 155 degrees. So again, it's stored above the chicken. That way, if for some reason something from that beef were to drip down onto that chicken, cooking the chicken to 165 degrees would kill any of that possible contamination. You'll notice whole roasts then are stored above. Whole roasts are cooked to 145 degrees And then fish as well is cooked to 145 degrees, but fish and seafood is typically stored above all meat products. On the top then, you'll have all your ready-to-eat food products, foods that will not be cooked any further and need to ensure that they are on the very top. They keep in mind, ready-to-eat food products are ones that have already been washed as well. So if you had a fruit platter that was ready to serve versus this lettuce sitting here, the fruit platter should go higher. Again, that is not going to be washed or prepped. It is ready to go versus the lettuce will still be washed before it is served. This storage level is crucial that you maintain in any of your refrigeration or freezer areas. Also, to make sure that your storage areas are kept clean. They're kept clean and dry. Any small puddles of water could fester pests, as well as causing accidents. You want to make sure you clean up any spills and leaks immediately. Keeping all of your equipment, your dollies, your carts, keeping all of those clean. Making sure your food containers are cleaned and sanitized. You'll notice in the dry storage area at Hack, I have purchased many containers and I've written with a black Sharpie directly on them, so that way we have a container and lid that match. So those lids can be kept shut and be in a really great condition so that we can see the products within it and we can maintain that cleanliness. You always want to store dirty linens in clean, non-absorbent containers or washable laundry bags away from your food products. And always store chemicals in a separate storage area as well. So now that we have received our products in and we've stored them, now they are in what's called our inventory. Our inventory is by far one of our most valuable assets in that it's not only worth money, it makes us money. We may only have $1,000 worth of inventory in our, let's say, cooler, but that $1,000 could bring us in close to $5,000 worth of sales. And it would contribute to paying our labor. It would contribute to paying our monthly bills. So it's a huge financial asset that we need to make sure that we control and we maintain. If something is going to our storage area, it should only be issued out, given out when it is needed. And it's important to control. If you have excess inventory, you end up having more waste. You have things that go bad, they get spoiled. You also have the possibility of theft and just mistakes of dropping things because there's not enough room on a shelf. There's two main types of inventory that we'll talk about. A perpetual inventory as well as a physical inventory. A perpetual inventory is a computer-based tracking system. It will track, here are the items you have. I have 20 steaks in my cooler right now. How much have you purchased? As I buy in, it will add, let's say, another 20 steaks. So now I have 40 steaks in-house. In my computerized system, it may say that I sold 12 individual steaks. So now I can take my 40 minus 12. It'll tell me that I should have 28 steaks left in my inventory, which is great. In a perfect world, the computer calculated everything and should keep me right on track. If I want to set up a par level, meaning I should always have 20 steaks on hand, I know I have plenty of steaks. I'm good to go. I don't need to order it until that perpetual inventory shows me less than 20 steaks on hand. It's really great for financial comparison and the cost analysis process. A physical inventory, though, is when you are actually going to the items, counting them, and taking what's called a physical inventory. This is generally done once a month by different operations. However, it's much more of a valuable asset to do weekly. That way you can determine and see if there's any problems directly when they're happening, rather than determining, over the course of 30 days, when did our food costs go wrong. You can have a clear picture each week as to what's happening. I've included a few videos following that will show you some different insights into how an inventory is important. And really, the idea of taking a physical inventory, you need to develop a form where you can easily take an inventory and not cause 10 different employees to spend 10 hours every single month doing. There's what's called a sheet-to-shelf inventory process, to where instead of alphabetizing your products or grouping all your flowers together, you look at the shelf that you have, and your first product maybe is on the top left, second product would be right to the right, the third product right to the right of that. You are using the actual shelf to set up your form. You're taking the items on your shelf and putting it down on your sheet. But when you're actually doing the inventory, it's important to not necessarily follow your sheet because you'll miss some things. Instead, go from that shelf. Look at that first product, match it up on the sheet, and write it down. If you find items that aren't on there, you're going to have to add them. Just because you haven't had them in your inventory before doesn't mean that you don't get new products, or maybe you were out of a product for a while and that dropped off of your form. These forms can be used to find your inventory value then, very similarly to how we've been doing in our pricing assignments, to where what is the cost value of that exact amount of product that we have in our inventory, whether it be a case, a half a case, whether it be 5 pounds or a gallon container. That's what we're looking to find and figure out an overall cost of our entire inventory value and the cost of goods sold. So here we can see, and we'll dive more into this in the next section next week, but really to give you an overview, to determine what your overall cost of goods were. How much did all the food cost you in this month time frame, let's say? I would take the beginning of the month. How much was my inventory worth? I want to add all the values of those purchases. I started off with $2,000 worth of products, but then over the course of the month, I spent $8,000 at Cisco. Now I should have $10,000 worth of inventory in my storage units. I'm going to subtract what I actually have left at the end of the month, because this will show me what I used. What was the usage, what was the cost of all of my products that were taken out of that inventory throughout the course of a month. Again, this could be done in a week, the beginning of the week inventory, the end of the week inventory. This is showing how much did those food products cost that were involved in my production. This we'll talk about will determine your food cost percentage and dictate what your selling price should be. Or, again, a target area to keep on track to make sure you're maintaining your overall costs so that your operation can actually result in a profit. Again, much more for our next week. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you.